Canada has a reputation for safety, but certain towns reveal a completely different side after dark. This isn't a list about crime. Across 10 communities, from Manitoba mining towns to Yukon River crossings, real locals warn about what isolation, collapsing infrastructure, extreme weather, and raw geography can do when the sun goes down. We're counting down 10 places where darkness exposes risks that daylight makes easy to ignore, ranging from cell-dead zones and black ice to permafrost roads that collapse beneath you. The dangers build with every entry, starting at number 10, a former boom town carved into bare rock. In the 10th place, Flin Flon stands as a classic northern mining town where the real hazard after dark is not crime, but the sudden disappearance of the world you know. Carved out of bare Precambrian rock, the street grid twists around outcrops and old mine shafts, making navigation a challenge, even by day. Once the sun sets, drivers leaving town face a 30-kilometer stretch of Highway 10 with no cell service, confirmed by carrier maps and local drive tests. When a winter storm swept through in December 2022, 12 semi-trucks were stranded in whiteout conditions for 45 minutes, unable to call for help or check road updates. The RCMP outage log notes the complete loss of signal during the incident, highlighting the outage. Black ice is a constant threat here, with provincial crash reports attributing nearly a third of accidents on this corridor to invisible ice. Long-haul drivers like Mike Hogan talk about losing GPS right at the edge of town, suddenly cut off in a maze of darkness and exposed rock. Locals warn, carry an emergency kit and never trust your phone to guide you home after dark. In Flin Flon, isolation and fading infrastructure turn a routine drive into a test of preparation and respect for the land. Number 9. Timmins draws its after-dark warnings from a single stretch of Highway 101, a 1-kilometer blackout zone east of town that locals call the Ice Trap. At kilometer marker 120, the world narrows to a corridor of shadow, unlit and prone to sudden black ice. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry camera, H101P, captured the reality at 2:14 a.m. on December 23, 2023. A moose crossing the road in silence, invisible until it's too late. That same night, the Ministry of Transportation's Ice Alert flagged this section for hazardous conditions, and 3 vehicles stalled out before sunrise. For Timmins, the risk isn't the town itself, but what happens when wildlife and winter meet in a blind spot. Road crews like Lena Peterson's team keep flares ready, setting them in sequence when ice forms faster than headlights can reveal. Residents know to wait for the all clear, or signal with a flare if stranded. The danger is brief, but it returns with every freeze, reminding drivers that even a short blackout can hide more than darkness. 8th place, Thompson, in northern Manitoba, faces a different kind of after-dark warning, one shaped by the rhythms of a town left behind by the nickel boom. With a population close to 13,000, Thompson once thrived on round-the-clock industry. Now, as the mills have slowed, the City Council has taken a more direct approach to nighttime safety. In February 2024, Municipal Bylaw 2024-02 introduced an 8 p.m. curfew for non-residents, a policy that asks everyone to clear the streets and lock commercial doors after dark. The bylaw is a response to a string of late-night disturbances, most notably a violent altercation at Bar 13 on March 5th, recorded in RCMP file number 2024-03-05-RCMP-13. Officers arrived in 6 minutes, but the incident left 1 patron hospitalized and underscored the limits of night policing in a town this size. Night shift nurse Jenna McLeod describes the shift in atmosphere. After 8, the street's empty, and you feel every block between you and help. In Thompson, the greatest risk after dark is not the cold or wildlife, but how quickly social order can unravel when the lights go out and the rules depend on everyone following them. Number 7. Uranium City sits at the end of a seasonal road that tests the limits of northern travel. With a population hovering around 75, the town is reached by an ice road that opens only 5 months of the year, stretching over thawing permafrost and frozen lakes. After sunset, the risk shifts from isolation to instability beneath the tires. The ground here is in constant negotiation with the frost line, cracks open without warning, and what was solid at dusk may be soft by midnight. In March 2022, a rescue was logged after a pickup broke through a patch of thinning ice, leaving the driver stranded until help arrived 18 minutes later. Ice road engineer Carl Miller describes the tension. You listen for the sound of the frost moving, and you watch for the spiderweb cracks that mean it's time to turn back. The hazard is seasonal but absolute. When the permafrost gives way, there are no streetlights, no cell towers, and the nearest emergency crew is a 1 hour's drive if the road holds. Locals warn, travel only in convoy and never trust the ice after dark in spring. Number 6. Fort McMurray stands as a modern boomtown, where the line between safety and risk is drawn not by the city lights, but by the stretch of Highway 63 that connects it to the rest of Alberta. The town's population hovers around 70,000, yet the road south remains a corridor of vulnerability after sunset. For 35 kilometers north of Wandering River, drivers pass through a zone where cell phones fall silent, confirmed by both carrier drive tests and Alberta emergency satellite data. No signal, no navigation, no way to call for help if conditions turn. This blackout is not theoretical. In February 2021, a glare ice pileup involving multiple semi-trucks and passenger vehicles blocked the highway for hours. The official accident report counted 3 fatalities and detailed how first responders relied on satellite phones to coordinate the rescue. Usage spiked by 2.5 times during the incident, according to Alberta emergency management logs. The risk here is compounded by the scale of traffic. Oil sands convoys, long-haul rigs, and shift workers all funnel through this single artery, day and night. When the 2016 wildfire forced a mass evacuation, the same dead zone left thousands briefly cut off from updates and family contact as they fled in darkness. Locals advise never travel this stretch after dark without a charged satellite phone and a full tank. In Fort McMurray, prosperity and peril share the same road, and after dark, the margin for error narrows to the width of a frozen lane. Number 5. Dolbeau-Mistassini sits where the pulp mills once defined daily life, and the lakes still shape the weather. With a population of about 12,000, the town is known for its riverside industry and its proximity to Lake Mistassini, the largest natural lake in Quebec. After sunset, though, a different force takes over. Radiation fog forms quickly as cold air drifts off the lake and settles along Route 167, blanketing the road in a thick, shifting curtain. On average, Transport Quebec issues a dozen fog bulletins here each year, often warning of near-zero visibility. Only 30% of the main roads are equipped with street lighting, leaving drivers to navigate by memory and reflex when the fog rolls in. In October 2022, a fatal crash on Route 167 claimed 2 lives when a car and a logging truck collided in conditions so dense that headlights barely pierced the haze. The local road safety audit called for urgent lighting upgrades, but for now, the warning remains. Fog can blindfold a familiar route in seconds. Residents who have spent decades in the region talk about the sudden quiet that comes with the mist, how the world shrinks to the reach of your own headlights, and how easy it is to lose your bearings, even just outside town. The advice from those who know is straightforward. If the lake fog is forecast, wait it out. In Dolbeau-Mistassini, darkness doesn't just hide the road, it erases it. Number 4. Centralia in British Columbia is defined by a mountain pass, where the road climbs at a relentless 12% grade, a stretch that has earned its reputation not from human threat, but from the physics of gravity and snow. With a population near 2,000, Centralia's main artery cuts through an avalanche corridor flagged by the BC Avalanche Centre as high risk, especially after dark. In February 2023, a slab avalanche broke loose just 1.8 kilometers north of town, blocking both lanes and leaving 3 vehicles stranded until morning. The event triggered a review by provincial safety officials, who found that nearly 60% of warning markers along this route were missing or buried, an audit that raised urgent questions about visibility and emergency readiness. Logging trucks still rumble through the pass at night, but drivers rely on habit and instinct where signage fails. The local avalanche bulletin is updated daily in winter, yet the warning is always the same. After sunset, the margin for error disappears. The drop-offs are unguarded, the snowpack unpredictable, and rescue teams may be hours away if a slide hits. Residents recall the old logging days, when a lantern hung by the road meant the way was clear. Now the advice is simple. If the avalanche risk is elevated or markers are down, wait for daylight. In Centralia, it's not darkness itself that is feared, but the sudden violence of snow and the silence that follows. Coming to the top 3, Wynyard sits on the open prairie, where the land runs flat for miles and the wind never truly stops. With a population of about 1,800, this Saskatchewan grain belt town is surrounded by a 45-kilometer stretch of Highway 16 that remains unlit and, for much of its length, without reliable cell signal. Local farmers and long-haul drivers talk about the nights when the wind picks up after sunset, carrying dust off the fields and across the highway in thick, blinding walls. Environment Canada records show that night gusts here average between 30 and 45 kilometers per hour, but spikes can be sudden and severe. In April 2022, a 3-truck rollover at kilometer marker 19 was blamed on a dust wall that dropped visibility to 0 in seconds. One driver lost his life, and emergency crews struggled to coordinate a response in the blackout zone. Unlike mountain fog or avalanche risk, the hazard here is the invisibility of everything: road, ditch, and even the horizon itself when the dust moves in. The grain economy that built Wynyard depends on these roads. But after dark, the combination of wind, dust, and total darkness turns a routine drive into a gamble. Local advice is clear: if the wind is up and the sky is dark, wait for dawn or travel in convoy. In Wynyard, respect for the prairie means understanding that, at night, the land itself can disappear. Number 2. Barkerville stands as a living fragment of the gold rush, preserved almost exactly as it was in the 1860s. When dusk falls, the town's commitment to historical authenticity becomes its greatest hazard. Barkerville's population hovers around 50, but at night not a single street lamp breaks the darkness because the Preservation Code prohibits modern lighting, leaving the entire grid in total shadow once the sun sets. In winter, the old wooden walkways and stairs freeze solid, and the valley funnels wind at speeds measured by a 2022 UBC study at up to 8 meters per second. That wind can drive temperatures down to minus 25 degrees Celsius, and with no artificial light, the effect is absolute: cold, black, and utterly silent. In February 2023, a visiting tourist slipped on an icy stair behind the general store, suffering a severe ankle sprain. The incident was logged by BC Tourism as a reminder that even routine movement becomes treacherous here after dark. Heritage Ranger Emma Larson puts it simply: our darkness is real darkness. If you don't have a lantern, you have nothing. Locals and staff carry wind-up lamps and warn visitors to stay indoors or travel in pairs if they must cross town at night. The absence of street lighting is not an oversight, but a deliberate choice to maintain the town's original character, a choice that deepens the risk when night falls. Unlike towns where fog, dust, or avalanche threaten, Barkerville's danger is cultural. The past is preserved, but so are its vulnerabilities. For anyone tempted to explore after sunset, the advice is clear: respect the darkness, and remember that history here is not just a story, but an environment you must navigate with care. And finally, in first place, Dawson City stands at the crossroads of Arctic geography, indigenous wisdom, and the unpredictable force of the northern night. With a population just under 1,800, and the nearest major hospital nearly 400 kilometers away in Whitehorse, Dawson's risks after dark are shaped by more than remoteness. The Yukon River, which defines the town's edge, freezes each winter, but the ice is not a guarantee. Permafrost monitors have tracked a steady warming trend, softening the river's surface and leading to 3 icebreak incidents between 2020 and 2022. In the spring of 2021, a local teenager fell through a patch of thin ice under the aurora's glow. The rescue, coordinated by Yukon Search and Rescue, took 22 minutes, nearly double the territorial average, underscoring the reality that in Dawson, help is always a journey away. Yet the river is only the first test. Recent studies from Yukon University reveal a subtler threat. Under strong aurora displays, 12% of hikers and snowmobilers misjudge distance or direction, sometimes by hundreds of meters. The aurora, while mesmerizing, can flatten depth perception and mask the subtle cues that guide safe passage on the land. Indigenous elders have long warned that the northern lights are not just a spectacle, but a force to be respected. Stories passed down in Trondheim tradition caution against traveling the river at night, especially during high aurora activity. These warnings are not superstition. They are shaped by generations of experience in a landscape where light and shadow can betray even the most seasoned traveler. Emergency services in Dawson operate with a lean crew, and the average nighttime response stretches to 30 minutes. In winter, that gap can mean the difference between life and death on softening ice or in sub-zero temperatures. The advice from those who know is clear. Check the permafrost and river ice bulletins, travel with a partner, and never trust your instincts alone beneath the aurora. Dawson City is not a place to fear, but a place that commands respect. A final reminder that in the far north, nightfall is a test of preparation, humility, and the wisdom carried by those who have survived it. Across all 10 towns, one pattern stands out. When night falls in remote Canada, the real risk isn't crime, it's the raw force of landscape, distance, and weather. Locals warn not out of fear, but out of lived experience. These places demand respect, not avoidance. In the dark, Canada's vastness isn't just an idea, it's a reality you have to be ready for.